today I'm going to talk about lead and your brain will follow. This is actually what we're learning in the Up-Spiral class, is that we can train our brains, we can train our minds to train our brain, and that's the leading part. To go where we want it to go. And where we want it to go is into the most positive place we can possibly be, because it is from the positive that I know we are one with God. When we are in the positive vibration, then we know that there is only God and me. Ernest Holmes in 1926, in his original Science of Mind book, said, 1926, that the subconscious mind is the builder of the body. The subconscious mind is the builder of the body. The mind tells the brain what to think. The mind builds the body. For a long time, around this era, 1926, 1930, and that part of the 20th century, Ernest Holmes, along with psychologists and even some medical people, actually believed in the mind-body connection. And they taught it, and they treated it. And then the materialists, the people who believe that what you can see, what you can touch, what you can taste, is the only reality. Everything else was just imagination. And so the mind-body connection began to fall away. People stopped believing in a mind-body connection. They thought that anything other than what you can see, touch, and taste was just all your imagination. What they didn't understand is that imagination is what built it in the first place. And the grand imagination, the imagination of God that created this universe, is where everything has come from. And then at the micro level, your imagination creates what is real for you. This is the spiritual side of it. But materialists don't believe this. People who believe that the physical is the only reality do not believe that the mind builds the body. They believe that it is the brain that builds it. But the good news is that today, scientists are beginning to understand that this is not true. Scientists today are beginning to realize that there is something beyond the brain. There is something that causes the brain to think. They are beginning to see and to understand and to teach what Ernest Holmes taught in 1926. So Ernest Holmes was way beyond his time. Everything about your mind and the collective unconscious, the mind of every person, every other person, since the time began, has created this world that we live in. It's not just your mind. It is the mind of every person, because we have all agreed on certain things. Because there's only one mind, and we all tap into that mind, and we take from that mind what we can believe. The collective unconscious, which is the thoughts, the feelings, and the beliefs of every person who has ever existed in this life. From the beginning, when man began to think, when man began to be conscious of himself, all of those thoughts, all of those feelings, and all of those beliefs have created a thought atmosphere around every one of us. And sometimes that atmosphere is more negative than positive, which is why sometimes it's easier to go to the negative. In fact, most of the time it's easier to go to the negative than it is to go to the positive, because we have to get beyond the negative thinking of eons of beliefs. If you just stop and think about what it is that you believe, and then you stop and think, well, where did that belief come from? And you start unraveling it and start thinking back. Well, it came. Remember the old story of the woman who always at Easter time, she had this huge ham, And so she'd cut it in half and then put it in the pan and then cook it. And one day her daughter said, "Mom, why do you do that? Why do you cut the ham in half before you put it in the pan?" And the daughter said, "I don't know. I've always done it this way." And as she began to think about it, she began to realize, well, that's the way her mother did it. And so she asked her mother, "Mom, why do you cut the ham in half before you put it in the pan?" And her mother said, "I don't know. I've just done it this way. My mother did it this way." And so as they began to trace it back, they came to the source of cutting the ham in half. And the great-grandmother said, "Well, I had to. I didn't have a pan big enough to hold the whole ham." And when you stop to think about your beliefs and you begin to trace them back to their roots, you begin to see that they aren't your beliefs at all. They were beliefs that have been handed down to you from your great-grandmother or your great-grandfather. And they handed it down because of their mother and their father. And so when you begin to examine your beliefs, you begin to say, well, do I really believe this? And that's when you become liberated. Because once you begin to understand if your beliefs are your beliefs, you begin to realize that you can change those beliefs if they don't resonate with who you are today. It's all a matter of thinking about them and beginning to analyze them, if you will. To think about, do I really believe this? Is this what I want? Is this how I want my life to be? And once you understand, once you get to the hidden belief, then you can actually change that belief. This is the order of creation. This is how it all came about. First, there was the infinite imagination, which is God. God created the universe. God created everything in the universe, and that means you and me. And then the second is you. Your mind and the mind of every person who's ever existed have created this world that we know today. The good news is you can change your mind. You know that old thing about how a woman's always changing her mind? That's good news. Because we can change our minds, but guess what, guys? You can change your mind too. You can change your mind. You can train your mind to go where you want it to go. And in the training of your mind, your training of your brain to be what you want to be, to have what you want to have, to live the way you want to live. And the other part of the good news is that your brain likes to feel good. It's not just you that likes to feel good. Your brain likes to feel good too. It works better when it's feeling good. Have you ever noticed when you're not feeling so great how muddy your thinking is? Have you ever thought about that? When you're not feeling well physically, your brain doesn't feel well either. And you can't think as well. You can't make decisions as well. So your brain wants to feel good. It operates better when you're feeling good. So you can train your brain. You really can. We're learning that. Everybody in that spiral group can testify to the fact that we are training our brains and we're feeling better every day. So how do you train your brain to create the life you want? You train it with your thoughts, changing your thoughts. Your thoughts change your feelings. Your thoughts change how you feel about anything. And when you change your feelings, and you change your beliefs, because your thoughts and your feelings create your beliefs. And when you do all those things, then you begin to tell a different story. This is the four-part act of creation. Your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs, and your story. And your story all comes from your thoughts, your feelings, and your beliefs. And you can tell a different story. And when you start to tell a different story, and by that I mean you don't tell the same old story, oh, I woke up this morning, this part hurt, this part hurt, and oh, my finances are so terrible, oh, blah, 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 blah. Stop telling that story And start telling the story of what you want. If you want a healthy body, start telling the story about how your body is healthy, about how I just feel good. I woke up this morning, I felt so good, I jumped out of bed. How many of you jump out of bed in the morning? I haven't jumped out of bed, but I do get up with a happier spring to my step most mornings. But I do know for sure that when you change your story, your life is going to change. And start telling this new story that you created this morning. And then visualize. Visualize yourself in your new story. Visualize yourself being happy. And you will be. Remember, think it, feel it, and live it. This is your new story. And I invite you to stay true to that story. And don't let the old stories, and it will, the old story wants to be told. So anytime you start to tell that old story, remember, that's the past. That's the past, and I'm living today. And I'm living my new story today. And my new story is, I am a vibrant, living, happy, successful, prosperous person, no matter what all that looks like to you. That is your new story. Remember it, and that's the story you want to tell.